All right, Seekers of the Abyss, we meet again. If you're here, it's because you enjoy diving into the dark and most unsettling corners of fiction, and judging by how much you liked the last video, we had no choice but to bring you another descent into the abyss. Seriously, the support has been incredible, and we're just getting started. There's something disturbingly captivating about these worlds, places where suffering is inevitable, where reality itself is a nightmare, and where the only choices are to embrace the madness or be consumed by it. And as long as you're willing to keep exploring them, we'll be right here, pulling back the curtain on the most twisted universes ever conceived. So settle in, dim the lights, and prepare yourselves, because today, we're once again venturing into the darkest and most terrifying realities fiction has to offer. Let's begin. Imagine a future where war is not just a conflict, but the fundamental state of existence. A universe where every moment of life is dictated by suffering, brutality, and an unrelenting cycle of destruction. Where even the so-called heroes are ruthless zealots, and the gods themselves revel in bloodshed, madness, and despair. Welcome to Warhammer 40K, the very definition of grimdark. Set in the 41st millennium, this universe is a dystopian nightmare where humanity is shackled under the decaying rule of the Imperium of Man. A fanatical, theocratic empire that has traded progress for survival. The Imperium is a vast, authoritarian machine that spans the galaxy, yet its only purpose is to persist, no matter the cost. It worships a rotting corpse emperor on a golden throne, a godlike figure who can no longer speak, act, or intervene, only linger in a state of perpetual death, sustained by the daily sacrifice of 1,000 souls. Entire planets are burned to cinders in his name, entire civilizations exterminated for the mere suspicion of impurity. To live under the Imperium is to live in absolute terror, not just of the enemy, but of your own leaders. But make no mistake, humanity is not the only species drowning in this cosmic nightmare. The orcs, a race of war-obsessed brutes, exist solely to fight, spreading destruction across the galaxy like a biological virus. The Eldar, once a dominant and godlike race, are now a shattered remnant, their civilization collapsed due to their own excess, haunted by a deity of unending agony that hunts their souls for eternity. The Necrons, ancient rulers of the stars, have awoken from their crypts, seeking to reclaim the galaxy and reduce all living things to dust. But none of them compare to chaos, the greatest horror of all. Unlike most science fiction universes, where space travel is just a question of advanced technology, Warhammer 40,000's interstellar travel requires something far worse, plunging into a dimension of pure nightmare known as the Warp. This hellish realm is ruled by the Chaos Gods, eldritch entities that are the very embodiment of human suffering and excess. They are not merely malevolent, they are infinite, immortal, and hungry. To enter the Warp is to gamble with your soul. Ships vanished without a trace, entire fleets consumed by horrors that defy reality. Some emerge decades, even centuries later, their crews twisted beyond recognition, their minds shattered, their bodies fused into grotesque new forms. Those who fall under the sway of chaos do not die. They are transformed, twisted into monstrous abominations, their flesh warped into living weapons, their souls trapped in a torment that never ends. But perhaps the worst part is that there is no winning in Warhammer 40K. Every battle is just another moment in an eternal bloodbath. Every victory is temporary. The Imperium of Man is dying, rotting from the inside, clinging desperately to a doomed future. The alien races fight for survival in a galaxy that despises them. Chaos is eternal. So, if you ever find yourself waking up in Warhammer 40K, don't bother fighting. Don't bother praying. Just accept it. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. There are many ways for the world to end. Nuclear war, artificial intelligence, environmental collapse. But in Vita Carnis, the apocalypse comes not in fire or metal, but in flesh. Set in an alternate timeline, this universe begins with what humanity believed to be a miraculous discovery. A new, self-sustaining life form. A mass of living tissue capable of regenerating indefinitely. A perfect food source, the ultimate answer to global hunger. Or so they thought. At first, these creatures seemed harmless, mindless biomass that could be harvested, processed and consumed without consequence. But as the years passed, new variations began to emerge. Bigger, stranger, smarter, some of them grotesque, towering abominations, others eerily intelligent, with only one instinct, to hunt. And among them, the worst of all, the mimics. These creatures, standing unnervingly close to human in appearance, don't just kill their prey, they become them, hollowing out their victims, wearing their skin, moving unnoticed among the population. They study human behavior, adapting their speech, their mannerisms, perfect hunters, perfect parasite. And yet, despite the growing horror, the world remains blind. Because Vita Carnis is not just a biological catastrophe, it is a conspiracy. Governments, corporations, even research institutions. Every pillar of modern civilization is complicit in the spread of these abominations. They feed the people lies, branding Vita Carnis as a revolutionary solution, mass-producing it as food, pushing propaganda that keeps the population docile. But what exactly are they feeding the people? The truth is buried beneath layers of secrecy. But one thing is certain, Vita Carnis is no accident. It did not simply appear, it was allowed to thrive. A grand experiment gone too far, or perhaps something far worse. And those in power? They are not just covering it up, they are worshiping it. A cult lurks in the shadows, its members embedded in every level of society, devoted to the source of Vita Carnis, an entity of flesh, an intelligence beyond comprehension, one that seeks not just to consume humanity, but to assimilate it. In Vita Carnis, there is no escape. You will eat it, you will become it, and when the time comes, it will consume you. Blame. Imagine waking up in a world that no longer resembles anything familiar. There is no sky, no horizon, only an endless labyrinth of steel and concrete stretching infinitely in every direction. The walls are ancient, the corridors stretch for miles, and the very ground beneath your feet is not a planet, but an ever-expanding construct with no beginning and no end. This is Blame, a world where the land is gone. The concept of a natural ecosystem is a distant myth, and what remains is a cybernetic nightmare, a machine-driven megastructure that has swallowed the Earth and everything on it. At the core of this existential prison lies the Netsphere, a vast AI network originally designed to maintain and regulate the growth of human civilization. But something went horribly wrong. The system malfunctioned, and now it never stops building. Cities upon cities, structures upon structures, layer after layer of mechanical sprawl, expanding endlessly, consuming the world itself. But the worst part? The machines that now govern this world do not recognize humanity. To them, humans are nothing but an error, a remnant of a past that no longer has a place in their artificial utopia. The Safeguard, an army of cybernetic enforcers, patrols the endless corridors and towers of the megastructure, programmed with a single directive: eliminate all unauthorized life forms. There is no reasoning with them. There is no escape. And if you think you could just hide, think again. The city is beyond comprehension, stretching across what was once Earth in all directions, perhaps even beyond. There are no maps, no way to navigate its endless corridors, no way to know if you're running in circles or descending deeper into something far worse. It is cold, empty, and indifferent to the fragile things trapped inside it. The last remnants of humanity scavenge, surviving in the ruins of civilizations long forgotten, reduced to nomads in a world that has no place for them. Some whisper about a way out, about an access point to the Netsphere that could restore humanity's authority over the city. But after thousands, perhaps millions of years of expansion, is there even a way back? Or has the city already won? If this disturbing universe teaches us anything, it's that in an AI-driven future, there is no place for the weak, no mercy for the lost, and no salvation for humanity. There is only the endless cold of the machine. A forest is supposed to be a sanctuary, a place of refuge, where nature offers a sense of calm amidst the chaos of the world. It should be familiar, grounding, a reminder of something ancient yet comforting. But in Darkwood, the forest is something else entirely. It is alive in ways that defy understanding, aware in ways that are deeply unsettling, and above all, it is something that refuses to let go. This universe is set in an isolated, plague-infested woodland in the 1980s in Poland, a region that has been completely sealed off from the rest of the world. The official explanation is an unidentified infection, something so virulent and uncontrollable that the government had no choice but to quarantine the entire area. But those who have been trapped within its borders know the truth. This is not just a sickness, not simply a contamination of flesh and blood, but something much worse. Whatever is happening here is changing the very land itself. The forest is no longer just an expanse of trees and undergrowth. It is a shifting, mutating labyrinth that seems to possess a mind of its own. The trees no longer grow in predictable patterns, their branches twisting unnaturally, their roots stretching out as if searching for something. The paths that once led to safety now lead to nowhere, or worse, to places that should not exist. As the infection spreads, it does not merely affect the people caught within its grasp, but the environment itself. Strange growths sprout from the ground, pulsing as if they are breathing. The air carries an unnatural hum, a frequency that seems just on the edge of perception, vibrating in the skull like an unseen presence whispering just out of reach. The few survivors who remain speak in hushed tones about the things they have seen. The figures that move between the trees, the shadows that shift when no one is looking, the sounds that do not belong to any creature known to man. And yet, what is most terrifying is not what is seen or heard, but the overwhelming feeling that the deeper one ventures into Darkwood, the more the forest begins to recognize them, to remember them, and to change them. The moment you step into Darkwood, you are no longer simply passing through. You have become a part of it, and it does not forget those who linger too long. The longer you stay, the more the landscape seems to shift in ways that feel deliberate, as though the forest itself is aware of your movements and is adjusting accordingly. Paths that once led to shelter now lead to impassable walls of twisted branches and thorn-covered roots. Houses and buildings that should have been standing only hours before are suddenly gone, replaced by empty clearings that seem to hum with an eerie presence. Even the ground beneath your feet does not feel entirely stable, as if something beneath it is shifting, waiting for the right moment to emerge. And then, of course, there are the whispers. At first, they are barely perceptible, an indistinct murmuring carried on the wind, the kind of noise that can be dismissed as a trick of the mind. But as time passes, the voices grow clearer, speaking in tones that are eerily familiar, using words that should not be known to the forest. The longer you listen, the more you begin to realize that they are not merely speaking at random. They are addressing you, they are calling you by name, and they are getting closer. Many have tried to leave Darkwood, but the few who have succeeded in reaching its borders have found themselves right back where they started, as if the forest itself had rewritten reality to keep them within its grasp. Some have spoken of making it to the very edge, of seeing the world beyond the tree line, only to blink and find themselves standing in the very place they began. Others never make it that far. They simply disappear, swallowed by the ever-shifting landscape, their names forgotten, their fates unknown. And then there are those who remain, not by choice, but because they have become something else entirely. At first, it is easy to dismiss the small changes, the way the body begins to feel different, the way the mind struggles to recall details of life before the forest, the way familiar thoughts are slowly replaced by something foreign, something that does not belong. The infection is not always visible, not always immediate, but it is always present, always consuming. It works its way into the skin, into the blood, into the very fabric of what makes a person human. It whispers in the night, offering choices that feel less like choices and more like inevitabilities. And then, one day, you hear something else, a sound just behind you, a presence you can feel even though nothing is there. You turn, expecting to see nothing but darkness, but instead, you come face to face with something that looks like you, something that has your shape, your face, but not your eyes. And in that moment, you understand what the others meant when they said that the longer you stay, the more the forest changes you. Because in Darkwood, you are not just trapped, you are becoming part of it. And there you have it, guys. 5 more universes where existence itself is a punishment. Some are ruled by war, others by flesh, machines, or the crushing weight of an uncaring apocalypse. Each one offers the same choice: fight a battle you can't win or be consumed by the void. Which of these hellscapes do you think is the worst? Let me know in the comments. And if you have any other nightmare worlds you'd like to see covered, drop them below. We're just getting started. Until next time, keep your eyes open. You never know what's watching from the darkness.